We said, place your burden in Hashem's hands. Think about the following to alleviate anxiety. I have a limited scope of vision of what is truly good. I have faith in God that He will do what is best for me. In today's lesson, becoming saddened by one's spiritual state of affairs out of nowhere is usually the ingenious technique of one's evil impulse to bring one to downfall. A healthy bitterness, which is not depression, is premeditated and requires a correct frame of mind. So if it comes out of nowhere, thought of sadness and why am I here and they're there,
wasting my whole life,
whatever thoughts, you should know that it's the ingenious technique of one's evil impulse. So we have to differentiate between bitterness and sadness, between bitterness and depression. Bitterness is something that you premeditated. You thought, okay, I'm going to have a designated time to think about my shortcomings, a designated time to think about mishaps and things that needs to be corrected. And at that time, there's a time that you allotted for bitterness. But if it's in the middle of the day, even if you're in your business, you're not learning Torah, you're in your business, it's only thinking about past sins and the like, it's coming from the evil inclination. Because he wants to tell a person, you're anyway a bum, and why don't we pile up some more? Right?
I would say that to reinforce yourself, you just have to think what's going on in the world. People have no clue. 70,000 people contaminated with the virus. That's enough to bring you back to life and say, "Oh, thank God."
It's just getting started. I hate to tell you.
Thank God.
You for your optimism.
I'm not in that.
It's bad.
Jacques, thank you for your
optimism. Oh no, you know what? It's going to be over next week. Yeah, no, it's.
That's really? Yeah, hopefully it'll be over today.
I heard the Israelis have a cure, so let's see if the BDS people are going to. I think so. Yeah, Israel has a cure for everything. See, you like the positive angle.
Hashem has a cure.
Exactly, Hashem has a cure, but
many times
Israeli, but to Am Yisrael.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hashem.
Yeah.
But Hashem is the one who is the ultimate doctor.
Right. But to say that I should feel better because people are in a worse type of a situation, that's not necessarily the point over here. Right. Meaning, to get out of this is like, oh, okay, he's in a worse type of a shape, I should feel good about myself. He says, no, you first of all need to know that these thoughts are not coming from a good place. It's not coming from a self-improvement state of mind that you're trying to, how can I get better? That's what I'm thinking about. You need to know that this is a technique of the evil inclination. Once you know the opponent, once you can identify where it's coming from, you will eliminate it right away. Because if it's trying to better myself, it's coming from a good place, then you should entertain it. But it tells you that even if you're in your business, middle of the day, doing your work, and these negative thoughts are coming in, I'm talking about telling a person about his misdeeds, you should know that it's the evil inclination. It has nothing to do with godliness, it has nothing to do with positivity. But in general, you're right. If somebody thinks about, like it says in Ayom Yom, the spiritual things, you have to look at people that have more than you. Yeah, and when it comes to physical things, you have to look at people that have less than you. Whether it's health or financial, whatever it is, you should look at people that have less, not to feel depressed. But we just learned it last week. Lo tachmod beit recha, lo tachmod eshet recha. Do not covet anything. Don't look at
the same time you said yesterday, everybody should be happy with his lot.
Right.
With his lot. Just write down on top of it somewhere. Get a clue. Right. Get a clue what's happening in the world.
Right. So let's see, atzvus. Now in general, what is atzvus? Atzvus is sadness. So it says, the Alter Rebbe goes on to discuss a different type of sadness that's caused by one's failings in matters of the spirit. So this is you would think it's something good. Finally, somebody is sad about failings of spirit, not failings that he didn't make enough or he didn't do this. Spiritual failings. He writes, for as for sadness connected with heavenly matters, one must seek ways and means of freeing oneself from it. So this is not even talking about the time of serving Hashem, because the time that you serve Hashem directly, we always serve Hashem. Sometimes we serve Hashem directly, like in davening, learning Torah, but sometimes it's indirect. But he said it's needless to say, while you're serving Hashem, that if thoughts of sadness coming to you, they need to be kicked out right away, because we have to serve Hashem with joy. Hashem b'simcha. So that there's no room for it at all. A time of davening, time of learning, time of milut chasadim, acts of kindness, there is no room for sadness at all. So now, now we're talking about a businessman or someone that is involved with derech eretz, with community affairs and the like, worldly affairs. Suddenly he has thoughts of sadness or anxiety about heavenly matters during his business affairs. It says, it is certainly a trick of the evil inclinations which saddens him ostensibly, thank you, for spiritual reasons, in order to lure him afterwards into lust, God forbid, as is well known. This reminds me always the saying of the Baal Shem Tov, that mikveh can lead you to the greatest mitzvah, to do the greatest mitzvah, going into mikveh. Tvilah is the word bitul. It brings nullification to a person, bitul. Nullifies yourself, and it makes you it purifies you. It says you're coming closer to Hashem. So mikveh can lead you to the greatest mitzvah, and atzvus, sadness, can lead you to the worst type of sin. That's the Baal Shem Tov say. Sadness leads a person to the worst type of sins.
You know the choshech, what's it? The choshech of Lublin, is that what it?
The darkness.
The choizer of Lublin.
Yeah. So in this book,
the visionary of Lublin.
The 9 gates. He was friends with this guy. He did every affair, but he never was sad. So he always was simple. So he said, "This is so."
Knocked him out.
He was good for him, you know.
So when you do Averis, do them with joy.
No,
Good.
No, but,
I love you,
No, God forbid.
No, but he was a simple guy.
Right. They say the worst. You know what worse than the sin itself?
Is it depression after?
The after the sin.
You feel so bad that you did
because
it. If you're going to do it, at least enjoy it.
Because it drags the person down and says, "Why should I serve Hashem with joy? I did this, I did that."
It's a new day.
After the sin is worse than the sin itself.
Yeah.
What's the earliest and latest time to go to the mikveh?
5 o'clock.
For men, you can go to mikveh anytime.
Even at night?
Well, usually for the women.
I don't know.
Except when there's nobody else
At
around.
night, it's not.
Just make sure. No one. Sometimes
during the day.
over here in this specific mikvah, women sometimes use it.
No, I know
So,
that,
but
it's
in general,
suggested to use. But it's not suggested to go in the morning before praying.
It's better to go before
can,
davening.
yeah.
In general, it's better to go before davening. So 9 o'clock, they usually start the filter.
You want to join the
so it's
mikveh
better
club?
to
We
do
got
it
a
before
nice
the
club.
filter. Before the filter kicks in. Anyway, it is man's nature to seek pleasure and not to remain depressed. If his feeling of spiritual failure distresses him, he will seek his pleasure in physical gratification. He can't get his pleasure in spiritual matters, so he would look for physical gratification. The evil inclination therefore wishes that one be depressed. You're not successful in spiritual matters, so therefore pleasure here in this realm is not going to happen. So try to look for it in physical gratification.
And could be just having comfort food. You know, for women, comfort food.
Anything.
Also comfort food.
Before you know it, they start to become like an elephant.
Yeah.
Elephant.
Men also eat
Why
comfort
woman?
food.
Men.
Yeah,
I
I
am in the men group. I try to control
especially
myself, but
they get
You
depressed
can
and so
find
on.
comfort food that's not that's healthier.
The evil inclination, Rambam says anything that if you eat, you're not hungry. It's
gula.
Right.
it's the same thing. Don't kid yourself. If you eat and you're not hungry,
But
it's
if you had a piece of
You have for
salad,
a
it's not
pizza?
serving you.
Not really, no. Actually, I haven't been feeling too good, so I'm not into any food right now. I can't taste anything.
Not true. If you eat too
My
much of
my
salad,
grandmother, she couldn't
it could
taste
harm
nothing.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
Couldn't taste it.
that's
Like the snake.
It could
moderation.
harm you also.
Moderation.
Yeah, she couldn't taste the thing.
anything in
Everything
She lost her
moderation.
taste buds. The
too
brain.
much is
Yeah, she didn't have the sense of taste.
Oh, wow.
The point of
crazy,
the
yeah.
po-
Hashem can take away your taste.
I mean, the point of the Rambam is
Everything gets
that
split,
he
don't taste
doesn't.
that.
His philosophy is that the body is not food. Food is not the healing part. Food is not a healer. The body has the power to heal itself. But since the body is constantly occupied with digesting the food,
Food brings disease.
so
Get
no,
no rest.
no.
Get no
Now
rest.
listen to this. Since the body is constantly occupied with digesting the food,
It doesn't have time to fight the
it
sickness.
doesn't have the power or time to fight the sicknesses that come in the way.
That's why I say fasting is good.
It says a person should always be, the Rambam
Fasting.
writes that the person should always be in a state of almost hungry.
But, right.
You're not hungry, but you're not
Stay
starving.
hungry,
But,
stay
Most
hungry.
full
but
is
if you're
2/3.
full, that's the time where you can intercept all the different kinds of sicknesses. At that
Too
time,
much.
you can't. The body is so occupied with trying to, and that's why in American culture you have all these sicknesses, diabetes, and all these things because you have this, and then the dessert is coming, and
Super.
Right, so
cancers
so-
and this.
Super
They say in this
And
world
it just
today,
doesn't stop.
food brings disease. The foods today, it's not healthy. Unless
It's
you
not the
have.
food. I think it's the quantity of it.
You think people eating too much?
I'll
give- you know, you're very smart.
Think, no, according to Rambam, it's
No,
better to eat, and I tell you why.
it's a quality
Because it
too.
says it's better to eat something bad for you,
Right.
like let's say a hot dog with nitrate,
Okay,
than eating something healthy but too much of it.
I agree with you. But today, we have a different problem.
Because the body will still break it down,
Today,
figure out a way to
you
handle
know, we
it.
eat.
But when you put too much, you can't handle
Rabbi,
it.
but
No,
the
but
difference
you're
is
shaping
they
something like
they
you
inject the
with
cows
the
with steroids, they inject
Right,
medication,
right.
and the human beings are not like you go to Disney World. No offense to people, they're very big, and everyone always makes fun that they eat too much, but it's not that. Their bodies don't need the steroids. They don't need all the extra stuff they put in the milk and the meat and everything. And the people get like gigantic football players. They're huge. They have to have triple XL shirts.
Yeah.
And but after a while, the body can't do nothing with it. Doesn't know how to get rid of it. Same way they say, like if you have like sweeteners, he'll tell you he's very healthy. It ends up like spots on the skin. There's no way to, if you know.
But
too
it's
much
the
sweet
quantity.
milk.
It's
Yeah,
the quantity.
okay. I
Trust
gotta-
me, it's not.
I will be cutting back in 2020. Thank you.
Do whatever
Rabbi.
you want.
I don't want to be as big as the Disney
telling
people.
you.
The thing also is the
Both,
people
both.
never wait for their stomach to be empty.
Right.
They
They
just
eat
finish
because-
eating
I always-
half an hour after they eat.
I always say they eat
You gotta
because
wait
it's
for the
lunchtime.
stomach to
Signal
empty.
I always say we eat because it's lunchtime, not because it's we're hungry. We eat because it's lunchtime or it's supper. So they made because they are hungry, not hungry. It's like you go to sleep. You're tired. Why are you going to sleep?
I'm tired.
If you're tired, go to sleep.
Seriously,
You're not tired. Why would you go to sleep? There's nothing to do. Nothing to do. Learn.
Learn Torah. You go right to sleep.
Ve'ine,
So,
since genuine sadness is an expression of love or fear of God, genuine sadness, it should express itself at a time when these emotions are active during prayer, Torah study, and the like, but not during one's business. Clearly, then, the sadness is artificial, created by the Yetzer Hara for its own purposes, and one must therefore rid himself of it. The next paragraph provides the means. והנה בין שנופל העצוז בשעת אבדה בתלמוד תורה בתפילה ובין שנופל בשעת אבדה זוהי שעושים ליבוי, whether the depression settles upon him during his service of God in Torah study or prayer, or when he's engaged, or when he is not engaged thus, but with his material affairs. This is what he should consider. This is what he should consider. Ki ein azman gomokes lasus. This is not the true time, the proper time, the opportune time for sadness. Afilu ledaigas avanis chamur chas v'shalom. Even when it comes to worry about grave sins, this is not the time. You say to yourself, "You're right. I have this baggage, but there's a different time to deal with it. It's not the right time now. Push it off. He has to have an opportune times, when the mind is calm, is to reflect on the greatness of Hashem against whom he has sinned. In order for him to truly be rent with genuine bitterness, remorse, as opposed to depression. The former is alive and active, while the latter is resigned and dead. So bitterness is something that is alive, rather than sadness that it's something that is dead. It is explained elsewhere when this time should be. It says even though immediately after his heart has been broken during those appointed times, he should remove the sorrow from his heart. And he should believe with perfect faith that God has erased his sin and that he pardoned abundantly. Even if one has sinned repeatedly against Hashem, God will readily forgive him as though he had sinned for the first time. Unlike men who easily forgives a first offense but finds it difficult to do so when the offense is oft repeated. You can forgive somebody once, twice, but after 2 or 3 times, that's it. Out of luck. But when it comes to Hashem, he has the capability of forgiving you even though the sin was repeated. This knowledge that God has surely cleansed of him or of his sins is the true joy in God, which follows the sadness as explained above, that the virtue of sadness lies in the joy to which it gives rise. So we can also see if after the sadness comes true joy, you know that it came from a good place. But if sadness leads to more sadness, obviously it's from the evil inclination. The toolbox for success in divine service is your spiritual standing dragging you down? Do you feel like you should be better? This is why, this is the way to becoming better. Do not entertain these negative thoughts at this moment. It is the work of the evil inclination. Let's go to